So I just received the brand new iPhone 14 Pro, and after being an Android user for pretty much the last 6 years, I thought it'd be fun to switch over completely to the brand new iPhone. So without further ado, here are my first impressions as well as an unboxing of the new iPhone. So the 14 Pro comes with a couple new safety features, one of which is called satellite connectivity. Basically allows you to dial 911 or emergency services, even if you don't have cellular connection or Wi-Fi connection. Pretty useful. It also has crash detection, which alerts emergency services if you are detected in a crash. So it uses a bunch of sensors in the phone and detects if you're in a crash, motor crash ideally, and helps you out, calls the services. Pretty cool features, but probably, well, hopefully not really going to be used in most situations for people. Now, one feature relating to connectivity that I didn't like is the removal of the SIM card slot. North American models no longer have a SIM card. And for the most part, for people who don't really travel outside the US, this should be fine. They just use their default carrier. But for people like me, I sometimes travel outside the US to go, visit people, and I use an external SIM, right? The SIM for a carrier inside a different country or region. And you can't really do this if you're using something like this, is what I assume. You'd have to go through your default carrier like T-Mobile, Verizon, and switch it that way. Now, one of the main reasons I used to use an Android phone over an iPhone in the past is because of how customizable it was. But especially after iOS 15, I've noticed the iPhones come with tons of new customizable features. And with iOS 16, we now have customizable lock screens, which isn't really even a feature on most Android phones. So one of the features on the new lock screen is widgets. So you can basically pick and choose from a variety of widgets from your applications and put them on the lock screen. I'm not really a big fan of that, but it's a pretty cool feature. I just like my lock screen being pretty minimal. Now, on the other hand, the really cool feature is pretty much the adaptive wallpaper time feature. I don't exactly know what it's called, but basically if you have a picture with a good amount of separation between the foreground and the background, you can basically embed the current time into that picture, which I think is really cool and I'm going to be using a lot. Now, one feature I was really looking forward to was the always-on display. Android phones have had it for years, but I really wanted to know how Apple would implement this type of technology in kind of their own way, their unique way. But let me just tell you, it's not my favorite. So a couple things. Number one, always-on displays generally are meant to be low brightness, low battery usage, low color. It's just kind of there when you need it. You tap it on, you tap once on a blank screen, it'll show it to you. You tap it twice, it disappears. I think Apple just took the term always on literally, and it's just always there. The always-on display basically never turns off, and it's just full color, full brightness. And I just don't see the real usage for it except for kind of being like a cool secondary lock screen that's always on, I guess. I don't know, it's really a personal thing. It's definitely subjective, but I just don't think the implementation of this always on display is something that I can get behind. Maybe they might change it in the future, but at the moment, definitely not my favorite. Another problem I had specifically with the software was that iOS 16 comes with a battery percentage meter finally, but it kind of doesn't really work how it's supposed to. So they put it inside the icon, and basically the icon is full anytime it's above 20%. So below 20%, it turns to a different color, so it kind of notifies you there. But even if it's at 21%, it'll show you that it's full, but it'll just tell you the right number, like 21%. Very strange and not useful at all, but I guess they could fix that in the future with a software update. So let's talk about Dynamic Island. Of course, it's a very strange name, but looking past that, it is a fantastic piece of software and a really good feature. As far as how it works, I was thinking maybe it might not work with a lot of third-party applications, and then in the future, a couple months down the line, people can work with the developers and integrate that. But it works flawlessly from the start. Like, this is the first day it's come out September 16th. Everyone has it, and it's working great with many third-party applications that I use that most people have probably never heard of. And that's something that has really impressed me with Dynamic Island. Now, one thing to note, it definitely doesn't look the best under direct sunlight. So I kind of found this by mistake. I was going to shoot some pictures or take some videos of it, and it just looks so strange under sunlight, especially when there's a notification popping up. But under most scenarios, even like normal sunlight, it doesn't look that bad. One quick note, I actually wanted to mention how nicely it handles 2 tasks at once, splits it into like a pill and a circle, and it looks really, really fluid. So again, reinforcing the thought that Dynamic Island, albeit a weird name and might look weird to some people, it's really impressive as far as software goes. Now let's talk about the cameras on the iPhone 14 Pro. The reason I stayed on an Android phone so long, well, one of the main reasons, was that the camera capabilities and variations were just so extensive, right? I mean, just looking at the last Android device I reviewed, the S22 Ultra, fantastic zoom capabilities, and it just perfectly processed pictures of the moon, so that when I showed people that, and people weren't even believing that was shot on a professional camera, let alone, a smartphone. But what I realized is that after some time, I never really used those niche features as much, and I just needed an average camera with a good telephoto zoom that kind of just works perfectly. Great dynamic range, great processing, and I think this iPhone really does that well. I mean, in my limited testing, last couple hours, like I said, it's done great. And with a new 48 megapixel main sensor, they finally upgraded it from a 12 megapixel sensor. For the last couple years, it's been a 12 megapixel sensor. They finally upgraded it. With this, we have this new zoom telephoto capability. And let me just tell you, it is great. And so then there's the question, a pretty relevant question: would I replace a previous Android device that I've used with this for my primary smartphone camera? And the answer is yes. For anything that's not extreme, like astrophotography or 100x zoom, this phone does it great. And that's really what I'm looking for nowadays in a smartphone camera. Side note, the front-facing cameras are actually really good. I was expecting it to be subpar, considering the smaller island on the front, but it's actually pretty good. I guess with a lot of new generations using TikTok and other types of, I guess there's YouTube Shorts, stuff like that. I guess it's useful to have a good selfie front-facing camera. And finally, my predictions for how my experience with this phone is going to go the next couple weeks. I think it's going to go great. I mean, I just think it has the right amount of, Android and iOS in it. I'm not going to say which parts. I might start a war somewhere, but basically what I'm trying to say is it's a great phone. It's impressed me a lot, and I'm looking forward to testing it out and giving my full review. Obviously, if you haven't subscribed already, make sure to do that. You can get notifications if you click the bell, and you will see my iPhone 14 Pro review as soon as it comes out. So that's pretty much it. It's great to be back on YouTube, and thank you for watching. Catch you in the next one.